3, 2, 1.
Hello, good evening everyone. I hope you can hear me. Before I start, this is a bit of a new venture for us, so we're all a little bit nervous, but I'm sure it'll be okay. Every cloud is a silver lining, isn't it? You know, if this was a normal period now, we would have dragged you out to the school tonight and you would have got thoroughly wet waiting outside the hall. So, as I said, every cloud does have a silver lining. We have a number of staff here tonight, starting with me, Ryan Davis, the head teacher, and our deputy head, Lauren Mackey, and our Year 7 year leader, Mr. Kopp, who are going to talk to you. We had planned to introduce you to our new assistant head teacher, Mrs. Connolly, tonight, but at the moment she's not able to join the group, and maybe later on she will join. If you feel that you'd like to ask a question tonight, then please could you type it into the Q&A bar you see on the right-hand side of the screen. And what we'll do, we'll try to respond to the questions as we go through the evening, and at the end we'll have a Q&A session, but we have to stop it around midnight, so please, you know, if you keep the questions nice and short. So let's start properly. Hello and welcome to many of you who are here for your first Parents and Carers evening as part of the Bryn Teg school community. I'm aware, of course, that some of you have been to sessions such as these before, because you've already had sons or daughters who have moved through this school. So welcome to you as well. I promise I won't repeat the jokes that I've used with you before. Right at the start, I want to make one thing very, very clear. This has been a very strange and difficult time for us all, but looking forward, we're not going to allow where we are spoil things for our pupils. These are our new pupils and they're moving into what would be a very, very exciting time as they join us at Bryn Teg. And we're not going to let anything get in the way of that. In a way, our new Year 7 pupils will be the best prepared pupils ever. They've already experienced the long summer break that only pupils in years 11 or 13 get after their GCSEs or A-levels, and so they'll be ready for that. But what's tonight all about? Well, it's not really a night about curriculum, learning, teaching and finding out about assessment, although Mrs. Mackey will give you a brief insight into this later because we are so incredibly proud of what we are doing in this area at the moment. Tonight is about those basic things that you need to know and things that need to be done before September so that your son or daughter has the best possible start. If you came along to the open evening, as we normally have, you would have heard me say just how important it is that we ensure that all of our pupils are happy. Only happy pupils learn, and you'll hear me, and I make no apologies for this, you'll hear me say that time and time again. But to be happy, you have to have all of the basic things in place. So what are some of these basic things? Well, tonight I'm going to talk about, we'll start with uniform. Of course, many of you already contacted me because you're a bit concerned about uniform this year. And we have very, very clear guidelines at Bryn Teg. We expect pupils in normal times to turn up in uniform. But this year, for the first time, I'm going to say, if possible. If it has been difficult for you finding uniform this year, then we can be very, very flexible with your son or daughter in September. They can arrive in school trousers and a white shirt, all of which can be bought in supermarkets if that is what is required. The same is true for PE and games kit. If you can't find it, if you're not able to get to the uniform shop, then we will accept alternatives in the first instance. Incidentally, I've just heard from one of our suppliers, Uniforms to Go, and now they did have a struggle at the start in terms of uniform, but they now have a good stock of most items. They're only really struggling with certain sizes of blazer. And so again, if you can't find a blazer, then that's not a problem at all. These are different times and we will work with you. Please don't worry about that. So what are the other basic things? Well, we would suggest that when your son or daughter comes here in September, they'll need things like a bag large enough to store books, PE kit, and so on. Lots and lots of Year 6 pupils have already asked me about the lockers that we have in Bryn Teg. And yes, they are available, but it's still a very, very large site, and you'll need to move around. You need to carry your stuff with you, even if you have got a locker. So you'll need to find a good bag. You may already have one now that you use in primary school, and that will be perfectly fine. In terms of equipment inside the bag, a pencil case, a pen, pencil, and a ruler, and that's all you need. You don't need to go out and spend lots of money on other equipment at all. But there is one other recommendation in terms of preparing for September, and it would have come in very, very useful today. When you know a little bit about the Bryn Teg site, you'll know that all pupils need to wear a good coat. A coat that is large enough to go over a blazer, and a coat that is warm enough and has got a hood and so on. And incidentally, at Bryn Teg, we don't stipulate that you have to wear a dark coat, any coat. As long as the pupils are warm and dry, we don't mind really what they wear in terms of coats, but they will need a good coat. And that's it in terms of the things that you need to buy, the basic things. With all of those things, pupils will be able to access learning at Bryn Teg. Please, please, please don't worry about running out and buying other things at all. There are other things that you can do in preparation, again, which may seem basic, but they will make a big difference later on. And one of these things is ensuring that you've completed all of the necessary information, such as personal details, contact details, dietary needs, and so on. Now, to do this, we'll be sending you a link by email to an online form tomorrow. And we would appreciate, and I'm giving you your first piece of homework now, we would appreciate if this is completed immediately. A link to the form is already up on the website that we set up for our new pupils. And so you can click on the link and you can complete that information tonight, should you wish to do so. On this form, we'll also be asking you for permission to use our biometric system. What this means is that when your son or daughter wishes to purchase anything from our canteen, they can do so by using their thumb on a reading device. No cash is required. So our canteen, our coffee shop, they're completely cashless. The way that you get money into the system, you can do it in two ways. The preferred way is you can transfer money into their account using the BCB system that maybe many of you have already used online to pay council tax and so on. The other way is you can give your son or daughter cash at the start of the week or the start of the day, and they can put that cash, they can deposit that cash in what we call our cash point machines, which are situated around the school. We would prefer it if you use the BCBC website, because that means then that pupils aren't carrying cash into school, but that is your choice. However, we do need your permission to take the biometric print. And as I said, it's part of the online form that we'll ask you to fill in. Please note, it's not a fingerprint, it's not a thumbprint. We store points from the print, the thumbprint. However, you have the option not to take part in this. And if you don't want to give us permission to do this, then that's fine. We'll issue your son or daughter with a 4-digit PIN number, and they will have to enter this when they go to the cash point machine or when they purchase something from the canteen or the coffee shop. Of course, there is one more thing, one more basic thing, but really important thing that needs to be in place before September, and that is knowing which form group your son or daughter is in. And already myself, Mr. Kopp and Mrs. Mackey, we've already received so many emails, so many telephone calls about this, and it is important. In Bryn Teg, the form tutor stays with their form group for 5 years. So knowing who your form tutor is really, really important. So things have been a little bit different this year. In the past, what would have happened is today, when your sons or daughters perhaps would have come up for their transition day, they would have sat in the hall this morning and we would have read out a list of names and they would have gone off with their form tutor. We've always been a little bit uncomfortable with that. So actually, I think the way that we're going to do it this year is a little bit better. Incidentally, because of the situation we found ourselves in, We have been able to spend a lot more time organising the forms this year, and we've been a little bit more flexible as well. So all of our new Year 7 pupils have already been put into forms. This year, we have put pupils together who have come from the same primary school, or where they are coming to us on their own from a primary school, we have tried to position them in a form with someone they know, a friend or so on. And as I said earlier on, today would have been the day when they would have met their form tutor. Well, we haven't been able to do this, obviously, but as I said, what we're going to do is better in a certain way. So you'll get an email tomorrow with the form your son or daughter is in, together with a welcome video from their new form tutor. We tried, as I said, to be as accommodating as possible over these, but please don't worry. Whilst we would like our pupils to stay in their forms and not have, too much movement across form groups, this year, because it's different, if we have to, we will. If your son or daughter is unhappy, we'll listen to you, and if we need to move forms, that's what we'll do. So please don't worry about it, but I think when you see the form groups, you will be pleasantly surprised. So, pupils haven't had the opportunity to meet with their new form tutor. That's not a problem. They would have also seen other things if they'd come up to school for a transition day today. For example, our brand new learning centre, which we've just built in our lower school area, in our languages area. We've just received nearly 200 new Chromebooks for every area of the school. But of course, there'll be plenty of time to see all these things in September. So we are slightly disappointed we haven't seen you today, or won't be able to see you before the end of the summer, but there'll be plenty of time to make up for that. And I've got to say, I've been talking to the staff and they are just as excited and eager to meet you all, both the pupils and the parents and carers. So come September, it's going to be a very special time for us all. So I want to talk about partnerships now, and this is a partnership. We work really hard and pupils at Bryn Teg achieve well, but we can't do this on our own. We need your support as parents and carers every single step of the way. At Bryn Teg, high standards matter, and we seek to achieve this in every single thing that we do, how we speak, how we dress, how we work, how we play. And we can't achieve these high standards without you. And I'm asking you as parents and carers for your support now with your son or daughter to help achieve this. Now, we talked a lot about your son or daughter, but you as parents and carers, you are now firmly part of our school community. And I think I would have done a bad job tonight if you are sitting there listening to me now and you feel that you're not able to approach me or indeed any of the staff at Bryn Teg with any issue, no matter how small or how unimportant you feel it is. There is nothing more important than your son or daughter's happiness. Contact us, please. We are planning to make the next 5 or 7 years that your son or daughter is spending with us quite amazing. We're a school that is constantly looking forward and looking for new ways of doing things. Just take, for example, our enrichment programme. Every other Wednesday, your son or daughter will take part in an activity which is there just to allow them to enjoy themselves, to do something different. It is something we do because we think it will make a massive difference to our pupils. We will try anything to make our pupils happy and successful. This is the exciting and innovative school you are now part of. Things that have happened since the 20th of March, when schools closed, won't affect how we are working hard to ensure that each and every pupil has the best time when they come to Bryn Teg. Whilst the school is closed, this school actually has been really busy over the last few weeks and indeed months as we plan together and we work hard to ensure that September is going to be that brilliant period that I talked about earlier on. Okay, so the start's going to be a little different. We haven't had an induction and so on. But in life, if you keep looking back at what you have missed, then you will never ever move forward. That is our approach to the situation we find ourselves in. It's hard, it's strange, it's sometimes difficult, but our job is to identify the opportunities within it, and there are many. It's a privilege to welcome you as parents and carers and pupils to Bryn Teg School. I have been here for 3 years and I can honestly say it is an absolutely brilliant school. I'm bound to say that, but I truthfully believe it, and it's getting better and better every single day. Thank you for placing your faith in us, and I can guarantee we will all work as hard as we possibly can to ensure that every single pupil is happy and successful throughout their time at Bryn Teg School. Thank you very much. Diolch yn fawr iawn, and now I'll pass over to Mrs. Mackey.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. It feels really strange talking to you all, talking into a screen like this. It's totally uncomfortable, but for now, this is the best we can do. So welcome, thank you so much for coming. We currently have 113 attendees, which is absolutely amazing. So thank you for taking that time to join us today. My name is Laura Mackey, and I am the Deputy Head Teacher here at Bryn Teg School. I haven't actually been here that long. I started myself in September, so I know, what it's like to start in this school. I'm relatively new myself, but I can honestly say that this is an absolutely brilliant school. The welcome that I received when I arrived from both our wonderful staff and our incredible pupils was second to none. And I just know that your children are going to get the same warm and caring welcome when they join us in September. As Mr. Davis said, we were really looking forward to greeting the pupils and yourselves up into the school, this week to take part in transition activities. And yes, we can't do that because of the current situation, but please rest assured we have got lots and lots of exciting virtual activities up our sleeves, certainly for the week beginning July the 13th, where we are planning lots of different activities, including a science adventure and some opportunities for the pupils to meet virtually with their form tutors. So we will send information out as soon as it is completely planned. So just watch this space on that one. OK, part of my role here at Bryn Teg is to develop teaching and learning and to ensure that pupils have a really exciting and broad curriculum, a curriculum that every pupil can achieve and every pupil can do well in. At Bryn Teg, learning is divided into 6 different cluster areas. I know those of you that already have children in the school will be aware of this. So we've got languages, literacy and communication. And within that cluster, we have English, Welsh and French, so it's our languages. We also have expressive arts, and within the expressive arts cluster, we have music, art, drama and textiles. We have maths and computer science, we have science and technology, we also have humanities, and within that cluster, in year 7, pupils will study history, geography, religious education, and we also have health and well-being. And within that cluster area, we have things like PE, food and nutrition, PSE. And we truly believe at Bryn Teg that each area of learning is of equal importance. And that is why when the pupils come and arrive with us in September, they will have these different clusters split equally on their timetable. What I will say is this year, our cluster leaders and their teams have worked extremely hard to come up with a really exciting curriculum for year 7. And I don't want to give too much away because I know lots of the children are listening as well. And we want it to be new and fresh when they arrive in September. But it's a thematic curriculum and a curriculum which really challenges the pupils, but also supports each and every one of them. And I'll just give you an example. In the first term, the pupils will be studying a unit of work entitled The Best Me, and we feel that this year more than any, this unit of work is so important because it will give all of our staff the opportunity to really get to know the pupils. So for example, in languages, literacy and communication, the pupils will learn how to write effective autobiographies, and then they will use that work to help them then with their pen portraits that they produce in art and their raps that they produce in music and drama. They will learn all about their inner scientist in science, and they will learn about keeping healthy and the importance of keeping fit and healthy in health and well-being. And then as part of their maths curriculum, they will actually develop and produce a healthy school meal for our canteen. So all of the different work that they do will piece together and will challenge them in different ways. What we want is we want a curriculum that encourages our pupils to be creative, but also shows them the importance of collaboration, working together, working as a team. And that is what we hope this new curriculum will bring for them. As Mr. Davis said, a really important part of our curriculum and something that we are extremely proud of is our enrichment programme. And there are just opportunities for pupils there and staff to just switch off from the normal day-to-day. And every other Wednesday, they can take part in a range of activities. And I've written some of them down because I knew I would forget. So we've got things like rambling, running, football, computer programming, yoga, mindfulness. They can learn Spanish or Mandarin. They can do Minecraft activities and a whole host of other things as well. This is a programme that we are extremely proud of and one that we feel has the pupils and staff well-being at the heart. So I hope that's something that you will agree is really exciting and, you know, a really, really good opportunity for the pupils. Perhaps try something that they've not really done before to give them those extra opportunities and to step out of the box and actually take on a new challenge. In terms of the more practical elements of teaching and learning, and I know we've had a few questions, I've been looking at the Q&A bar regarding some of these things as well. Pupils are taught in different ways in Year 7, depending on what cluster area that they're in. So, for example, for some clusters, they will be taught in their form classes. So for things like expressive arts, humanities, the pupils will be taught within their form class. For the more practical subjects, so for things like PE, technology, those types of subjects, pupils will be taught in smaller groups. So you might find that there are a different mix of pupils in those groups. And then for maths, the pupils will be set for maths after the first few weeks of term. So you will have, even though you're in your form class, pupils will have the opportunity to meet other pupils through their curriculum as well, depending on what lessons that they have. There was a question earlier on about whether they'll have time to move from one lesson to the other, because Bryn Teg is a very big site. And yes, Bryn Teg is a very big site, and I found that quite difficult when I first arrived. But don't worry, please don't worry about that, because there is time written into the timetable for the pupils to actually move from one lesson to the other. So they haven't got to worry about that. And certainly in those first few weeks, there'll be plenty of people around to guide and support them. So they haven't got to worry about getting lost, and staff are very aware that that pupils may be late for the first few weeks, and it's not a problem at all. So please don't worry about that at all. So I suppose what I've explained to you here is just a real snapshot of teaching and learning in Bryn Teg. And I want to emphasise, the same as Mr. Davis did, that the most important thing for us is our pupils' well-being. And we want our pupils to be happy. We want them to be to enjoy school. We want them to be engaged in their learning. Most of all, we want this to be a happy place for them. And yes, the end of this academic year and possibly the beginning of next academic year might not be exactly as it's always been in the past, but we will endeavour to make sure that our pupils have a really positive start to their journey at Bryn Teg, and we are just really excited to meet them all. So thank you very much. I am going to pass you on now to Mr. Kopp, who is the year leader for Year 7, and I know he is extremely excited to meet all of the pupils and all of the parents and carers. So I'll hand over to Mr. Kopp now, who will talk to you a little bit more about some of the pastoral side of things in school. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Matthew Kopp and I'm year leader for Year 7. I will continue to support this cohort through their time at Bryn Teg as year leaders follow the students along their learning pathway throughout Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4. I've taught at Bryn Teg for 20 years and specifically worked within the pastoral team for the last 14 years. For the last 7 years, I've held the position of the head of year or year leader. Within the pastoral support team, the assistant year leader for Year 7 is Miss Thomas, who is also a very experienced member of staff. Miss Thomas has previously worked within the additional learning needs or pupil support department and is trained in ELSA, play therapy and Thrive support strategies. Considering the continuing extraordinary situation that we have all found ourselves in and the necessary restrictions the whole of society has been following, well-being and mental health, more than ever, if that is possible to say, are at the forefront of our minds. We will make space for grief of any type on our return from lockdown in the new academic year to promote the need for your child to feel safe and secure. We will make sure that every child feels that they are special to us. Every pupil will have an allocated form tutor, and I'm delighted with the members of staff that we have within the team to support the pupils on a daily basis. We have a 9-form entry, and the form tutors will be Ms. Fernandez, Mr. Webber, Mr. Buller, Mr. Townsend, Mrs. Evans, Mrs. Davis, Mrs. Richards, Mr. Williams, and Mr. Brown. They have roles within IT, design and technology, and maths. Bryntig School offers a range of provision for pupils with additional learning needs, including in-class support, literacy and numeracy lessons, and a range of one-to-one and group work sessions to address well-being issues. Several members of the additional learning needs team and also the pupil support team are ELSA and Thrive trained and work on a referral basis with pupils across years 7 to 13. The Additional Learning Needs Department also runs T-Seren nurture provision for pupils in years 7 to 11. T-Seren offers additional support for vulnerable learners who may require further support with emotional and social skills. Pupils are able to attend for breakfast, break and lunch, and may also attend one-to-one or group work sessions. T-Seren nurture provision is by referral only, and Year 6 pupils transitioning to Year 7 at Bryntig are referred via their primary school additional learning needs coordinator. Bryntig School is also fortunate to have a school-based counsellor 4 days a week who works with pupils from Year 7 to 13, again on a referral basis. During my time working at the Coity Hub, I've had the pleasure to already meet and begin to develop working relationships with a number of the new Year 7 cohort. I've also been in communication with a number of you regarding questions about the new academic year. I can only say that what Miss Mackey said about me being excited is completely true. I'm really excited at the prospect of what the new academic year will hold. There will be challenges, undoubtedly. However, I look forward to developing our relationship with you and your families, working together for the same common purposes. We will provide the environment and means to shape ambitious, capable learners who are ready to learn throughout their lives. Enterprising, creative contributors who are ready to play a full part in life and work. Ethical and informed citizens who are ready to be citizens of Wales and the world. Healthy, confident individuals who are ready to lead fulfilling lives as valued members of society. Your child's future at Bryntig is something to look forward to. I look forward to meeting you, every one of you in different circumstances, in different times. But in the meantime, I'll say hwyl fawr, and now I'll pass you back to Miss Mackey.
Thank you, Mr. Kopp. OK, so you've heard from the three of us now. We have got a number of questions which we are going to work our way through. We have started working our way through some of them and answering as we go along. But I know there's a few questions here where I'm going to put Mr. Davis in the frame, if you don't mind, Mr. Davis, and I'm sure he'll be able to answer some of these questions for you.
Hello again, everyone. So some of the questions, I know there's been quite a few questions around after school activities and what happens there and how many of them do we run. We run a broad range of after school activities. So all of the traditional sporting activities, rugby, hockey, netball, football and so on. But we also have had in the past running clubs, cross-country clubs, cricket, of course. So all of the sporting activities you'd expect, drama, dance, art, in a way, you name it, it's been put on. You know, some of the most popular sessions that we've had this year are things like our new ukulele club and so on. After school activities are really important and popular. The after school clubs start immediately at the end of school, so that would roughly be about 3:30, and then it'll stop at around 4:30. And so at the end of the day, you would need then to make sure that either you as a pupil or mum or dad or carer has made arrangements to collect you. Usually we say the best place to collect at the end of the school day is from our bus bay area, because that is a safe area. We're not asking you to go out on the road and so on. Other questions that have come through have been about transportation coming into school in the morning and home at the end of the day. There is one bus that comes to us, and it starts in Litchard and goes through Wellmill, through Litchard, and then through Coity, and then round the back of Brackler, and that's run by Peyton Travel, and that's we call it the pay bus. At the moment, we're in negotiation with Peyton Travel in terms of them running that next year. Things are a bit up in the air with them, but I'm quietly confident that bus would run, and it works very, very well. I don't make the rules in terms of the 3-mile rule and so on, but what happens with that bus is pupils pay as they get on in the morning or in the evening. And the bus actually drops off in our bus bay, and parents and carers have given us very positive feedback, because they know if their son or daughter accesses that bus, they do enter the school grounds in good time, and that bus is there at the end of the day as well. We've had some questions about uniform, and one of the questions we are asked every year are about training shoes, and I think someone's asked me about is it Nike Air Force shoes? I'm showing my age now because I haven't got a clue what I'm talking about really, but I think they are the plain black leather effect shoes, and if they are plain black and you haven't got the Nike logo that's in white on them, then they're okay, because if you go into Clark's up in the designer outlets now, they are selling school shoes which sort of look a little bit like trainers. What we would say though is, if you're wearing those for school, you're not allowed to wear them for your PE or games lesson, and they must be plain black. They must be leather or leather effect, so they can't be canvas. We don't allow those at all. And another thing I would say in terms of girls and girls footwear, a lot of our girls tend to wear I think they call them dolly shoes, but they're not very suitable in the wet weather, and more sturdy shoes are probably recommended, especially when you have to walk around such a large site. But the bottom line for footwear is they have to be plain black, they have to be leather or leather effect, so the canvas shoes are not allowed at all. We've had, I'll keep going for another few moments in terms of questions, and then I'll pass, I think, over to Mrs. Mackey, but we've had a number of questions about forms, and someone has asked us whether or not, why we can't send out the form lists tonight. And this year we're in the privileged position of having a very, very, very large year group coming into year 7, as has been the case for the last few years, and indeed as late as today there have been changes to that list, and so we are still working on the list. So when we finish this meeting tonight, we're going to continue working on those lists to get them absolutely right. It'd be terrible to send out those lists and then have to email you later on and say, sorry, we got to change it, but we promise you will get those emails tomorrow. And another question we've had about the email, and this is difficult, because if you'd come into school today and we put you into your form group, the first thing you would have done is looked around and tried to find out if your friend was in there and who else is in there with you, and if you knew anyone. Well, of course, on the email tomorrow, it's just going to have your name, because we're not allowed to send out the details of other pupils on that one email. And so our question was, are you going to send out the list of the other pupils in my form? Well, sorry, we're not allowed to do that. And that's one of the difficult things that we find with this situation. However, I'm guessing that as soon as you get that email tomorrow, you're going to be on your Xboxes or whatever, talking to your friends and asking what form you're in and so on. And so you're going to find out yourselves, but you will need to do that yourselves. We can't do it. We're not in a position to do it. And before I hand over to Mrs. Mackey. There was another lovely question about dance that has come up, I think once or at least once, maybe twice. Do we offer dance? And yes, we do. In fact, one of our PE staff is a trained dance teacher. And what we found in the last year or so, there has been an increase in demand for dance, especially when we move into our years 10 and year 11. And so it's crossing our mind as to whether or not that ought to be offered as a separate course. And you need to be aware of that. So yes, dance is included in the PE curriculum. And so I'll pass over to Mrs. Mackey now, who will answer some of the questions, and then perhaps you'll come back to me, Mrs. Mackey, after that.
Hello again. Okay, so we've had a few questions about the actual curriculum itself. People asking, will they be studying French? Yes, definitely. So French and Welsh are both included as part of the Languages, Literacy and Communication cluster. So there'll be lots of opportunities for you to learn languages within that cluster, within those lessons. Also different questions about whether pupils will be doing art and different types of art. And the art curriculum here is absolutely amazing. I'm sure if you follow us on Facebook, you will see the quality of the work that the pupils produce in art is absolutely ridiculously good. So it's really exciting, lots of different genres that you will study there within the artwork. We've also had some questions then about movement between lessons, and I did say, yeah, you will have time between your lessons. There's designated time to move from one class, one part of the school to another. So there's 5 minutes that you have there within your timetable to actually have that transition and to move along from one place to the next. Some of the other questions we had were talking about lunchtime and whether lunchtime is staggered. So at the moment, lunchtime isn't staggered. So everybody has lunch at the same time. There are 2 different canteens in the school. So we've got the one in Languages, Literacy and Communication area, and then we've got another one up in the Humanities area. And depending really on where you have your lessons, where your 4th lesson is, a lesson before lunch, really sometimes determines where you go for your lunch or your break. And, you know, depending on how the situation works in September, we may have to move to a staggered lunch, but at the moment, under normal circumstances, lunch isn't staggered. We did have a few questions about food that's on the menu, and there's a wide variety of food on the menu. There's usually a special every day, which is different for the 5 days. And then, you know, the usual food that you can get, a complete and utter mixture. They do the most amazing hot dogs, absolutely incredible hot dogs, which are really, really lovely. There are different types of baguettes on offer. You know, there's a cooked dinner. There really is a good variety of food on offer for lunch there. Let's see if we've had any other questions. Mr. Kopp, should I pass over to you? You may have seen some other questions as we've been going through.
Yes. Some of the questions coming through that we've given answers to, are there breakfast clubs and what time do they start? We do have breakfast clubs involved in school. Usually breakfast clubs are somewhere in the region between 8 to 8:30 start. So from that point then they'll be able to access lessons via their form classes, and form classes would be gathering around about 8:45 and registration will be taken at 10 to 9. So we've looked at clubs. I run a darts kind of opportunity as well. So if anyone's interested in darts, then you'll be keeping your eyes open for that. In terms of other clubs, football club, film club, for those of you that are keen film buffs out there. So there's a wide variety of those. And what I would say is that there's not enough time for me to go through every single club, but you know, there's a wide variety of clubs that will and should touch everyone's interests.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kopp. I'll put Mr. Davis back in now for a few more questions.
I was just going to escape then as well, but I've noticed that there are quite a few questions around the current situation and what's going to happen in September. And of course, I wish I knew. But one of the things that we started doing earlier on this week is we've got 3 different models that we're working on. The first model is, and this is the model that we hope happens in September, is that the school returns to normal and that all 1,500 pupils turn up on the first day in September and we have a fantastic year together. The second model is kind of the model we'll be going in really into the next few weeks, where there'll be some learning at home, some learning in school. And then the third model is the one where what happens if we have a second wave and then it's home learning altogether. I just want to tell you that we are thinking about all possible eventualities and I'm planning for them now, because one of the problems we all found as teachers, as pupils and as parents and carers is, of course, when that announcement was made on the 19th of March or whenever it was, and we then stopped on the 20th, I don't think many of us were ready for it, where we couldn't have been, we couldn't have predicted that. So we are hoping that we are going to be back to normal, but who knows? But what I would tell you is we are actually, and I can't share them with you now because we are working really, really hard on our plans for September. One of the things that we do know is that our pupils in Year 6 haven't had a proper induction period. And so we are going to spend some of the first few weeks doing an induction period with our Year 7 pupils, as you will be then. And so you won't miss out on induction at all. And I spoke to a parent the other day, a Year 6 parent, who said, oh, it's going to be really scary because bang, when they come in September, that's it, it's secondary school then. And no, you know, we're going to actually look at it and try to plan an induction so that it'll almost feel like half primary, half secondary school, because that wouldn't be fair, would it? And so whilst you're missing out now, you will not miss out in September. The other question around that is about buses. And of course, transportation is really, really difficult during this time. Some of the 53-seater buses that we have coming into Bryn Teg now, we've been told can only accommodate 8 to 10 pupils if we have to maintain social distancing rules. And so again, we're hoping for a relaxation of those rules by the time September comes around, but we'll work with you. And if it means buses have to come in, you know, later in the morning and so on, well, so be it. You know, in normal times, if you're late, you get a late mark, and if you get too many late marks, you get into a little bit of trouble. But it's going to be different when we start in September, but you very much are going to have a transition period, and we're working on that for you now. I know one of the other questions was about after school. And some parents and carers, and we do appreciate this because schools finish at all sorts of different times. One of the things that we will do, and you heard me mention earlier on, we're just finishing building a new learning resource centre. We've completely revamped our library, which is based in our languages centre, which is in the old lower school, and we're hoping that that will be a facility that you are able to use at the end of the school day as well, because we are aware that some parents and carers find it quite difficult to get to school for 3:20 and so on. And incidentally, and in terms of basic things, 3:20, if you've ever been outside Bryn Teg School at that time, is quite chaotic. Some parents and carers have been asking me, where's the best place to drop off and pick up? If you feel comfortable with dropping off your son or daughter a little way down the road and not driving up as close as you can to the school gates, it really does help. If you use the Heel Gam entrance, the old lower school entrance, for example, that's a cul-de-sac and it gets completely choked up in the morning. It's quite safe to drop pupils off if you come down the Merthyr Mawr Road end, is to drop pupils off there where it's safe and pupils walk for the last 200 yards into school, and actually that makes it safer for all of our pupils as well. But at the end of the day, if you are struggling, please let Mr. Kopp, Miss Thomas know, and we'll ensure that there is some facility to look after your son or daughter. And now I think I'm handing over to Mr. Kopp.
Hi, just a few questions relating to vegetarian meals or vegan meals within the canteen. There are options. I eat quite a lot of vegetarian meals myself from there. I eat in the canteen most days. I'm going to be biased, but really the quality of the food there is very, very good. Another question relates to how much dinner money that you will need. Less than £3 will buy you a good meal. There are obviously options at break time as well that you'll be able to buy yourselves, but no more than maybe £3 a day would be adequate for a good meal throughout the day. You're more than welcome as well to bring your own snacks and drinks. The only thing that I would say is that we do not really kind of want energy drinks or that sort of drink coming in cans or tins. What we would prefer is water or a squash rather than those types of drinks.
Okay, and I think there's only one other question that stands out there, and it's about mobile phones and asking whether pupils can bring mobile phones into school. Yes, pupils can bring mobile phones into school. We don't have a problem with that at all, but we do have designated areas within the school where pupils can use their mobile phones. So for example, in the canteen, etc., they are mobile phone zones. So we wouldn't expect mobile phones to be used in lessons unless a teacher has asked you to take your phone out for some reason to use it for a research task. But you are allowed to bring your mobile phones, but you will have to follow the rules and use them in the designated areas that are there for their use. Okay, so I hope we've answered that. I can't really see any other questions there that we haven't answered. Oh, I think Mr. Davis has found one. Hang on.
Yes, there's the question about lockers. We have got lockers throughout the school. They're situated in most blocks. They're situated outside as well in what we call our quad areas. If you go onto our website, you'll see a link to the locker company. And we don't manage the lockers ourselves. It's managed by a locker company. And when you click on that link and you type in Bryn Teg School, it will take you into a plan of the school, and you can reserve a locker in a particular area of school. Now, I can't remember if we've mentioned this in the meeting tonight, but our new Year 7 form rooms will all be based in the Maths Centre, which is right in the centre of school. And so if you know the school and you drive into the bus bay, as you get to the end of the bus bay is a bit of a cul-de-sac. As you're driving into the bus bay, at the end of that bus bay, you'll see the first block you'll see is the Maths block, and that is where most of our Year 7 form rooms will be based next year. And so if you're booking lockers, then you may want to book a locker around the maths room area. What some pupils do with lockers is they team up with a friend a little bit later on, so there's no rush for this. There are spare lockers. They team up with a friend, and one gets a locker at one end of the school and the other gets a locker right at the bottom end of school, and they share the lockers, and so they're never too far away from a locker. And the last thing I'm going to say about lockers, I'm an expert on lockers, you know. The last thing I'll say about lockers is, and we are so pleased about this, the reason why we've gone with this company, and we're moving into our third year with this company, is that none of the lockers have keys. They're all operated with a combination lock. When you pay for the locker online, we don't take the money at all. It's all managed by the company. You pay for the locker online. You then sent an email with a 4-digit PIN code that you use on the combination lock. If you forget it, we do have a key that enables us to get into it and reset it for you, but hopefully that's not going to happen too often. That was the one question that I spotted. I don't know if anyone else has spotted any other question. I think Mrs. Mackey has.
Just a couple of more questions about the canteen, really, and whether pupils can bring packed lunches and eat them in the canteen. That is absolutely fine. Lots of our children bring packed lunches with them and eat them either in the canteen or they eat them on one of the picnic benches outside if it's a nice day. But yeah, packed lunches are absolutely fine. No problem at all. Oh, Mr. Copper spotted another question. Mr. Copp, you're muted.
Apologies. We've got a question from one of the pupils, Eva. Are we allowed to email any work that we have done? we've been working in a very different way over the last 12 to 14 weeks. And we're developing links with Google Classrooms. And I think more than ever, we'll be open to using this form of interaction with students and with families. So yes, any work that you've done will be accepted across email, and you'll get a lot more development with that working through Google Classrooms in the very near future.
Okay, and just a few later questions about water bottle top-up stations. We do have those in schools. A really good question. Really important to stay hydrated. And yes, we do have water top-up stations around the school, so pupils will be able to fill their water bottles throughout the day there. Okay, I think, oh, hang on, Mr. Davis has spotted another question.
Yeah, I think I'll round off with this one, if that's okay, Mrs. Mackey. Can pupils go home for lunch? Well, if pupils are to go home for lunch, we need to see a letter from parents or carers, and it is going home for lunch. We cannot give you permission to go to the shop, to the chip shop, to the Chinese or whatever it is, because that happens and with our older pupils, but it's something that is being phased out right across the school. And so if the question is, can they go home for lunch so that they're actually coming back home to the house? Yes, they can, but we need a letter of permission to be able to do that, and we are quite clear about that, and we take a very dim view of people, our pupils who perhaps say they're going home for lunch and then we see them in the local spa or whatever, and we wouldn't want that to happen at all. I don't think if a child is late in the morning, who needs to be contacted so a child is not lost. If the child is late in the morning, you will be contacted if it's beyond the time where the registers close. But we have an attendance line in school, and you will get information about that, and you will be able to contact that. You'll be able to email us as well on that attendance line, so we know where that's and sometimes traffic jams, this, that and the other, things go wrong. We'll need to know about it, but you will get those contact details. I don't think there are any more questions there that we haven't covered at all. Listen, it's been a different evening for us all. I hope that we've done a good job tonight. We wanted to introduce you to Mrs. Connolly. It's probably my fault by clicking on the wrong thing, meaning that she hasn't been able to get into the meeting tonight, so I do apologise for that. But Mrs. Connolly is our new assistant head teacher. She's joining us from Mountain Ash. She will be joining with you, so she will be new with you as year 6 pupils coming into year 7. But her role is she'll be assistant head teacher, and she is overseeing year 7, 8 and 9. So we'll be working very closely with Mr. Kopp and Miss Thomas as they lead the year group. And so you will get to see Mrs. Connolly, and you will get to meet her as parents and carers very early on. But as I said, I'd like to think we've done a good job tonight. If we haven't, I'm sure you let us know about it. If you think that, or I don't think I'll bother Mr. Kopp, Mrs. Connolly, Mrs. Mackey or Mr. Davis with this, as I said earlier on, we have done a bad job. Our job now is to answer your queries, to deal with all of those little things, because those little things become quite big things if you allow them to fester. And it is a difficult time, a strange time, so please contact us. I would urge you to visit the website that we've set up for our new pupils. We're quite proud of it. We did it in just under a week because we felt that we needed to put as much information in one place as possible. So please access that website. We've updated it recently. Well, in fact, we've updated it today because the link is there now that you can click on as of now to fill in personal details. But you may wish to wait until you get the email about the form group tomorrow before you do that. That is completely up to you. Incidentally, as I said earlier on, regarding the form, could you ensure that you fill it in as soon as possible? We'd like it in the next few days. It won't take too long, but as soon as we get that information, we can populate our database with it, and we can start working with you and ensure that we're getting everything right at our end as well. Thank you very, very, very much for attending tonight. As I said, I hope it's been useful. It would be so nice to have seen you all tonight, but I think this is the next best thing. If there is anything that you're concerned about, contact us. And as I said earlier on, it's an absolute privilege to welcome you all as members of the Bryn Teg school community. Take care of yourselves and your family, and I hope, and we hope, to see you in person very, very soon. Diolch yn fawr iawn.